You're listening to Commissioning Conversations, the podcast brought to you by Broadcast Intelligence. Hi there, and welcome to Commissioning Conversations.
I'm Heather Fallon.
And I'm Alice Redman.
And we're both researchers and journalists for Broadcast Commissioner Index.
And today is a very special festive episode where we'll be reflecting on the biggest news of 2021, what lies ahead for 2022, and the TV industry's favourite telly, as well as our own.
And I might even throw in a couple of little festive games,
which I have no idea of and I am very excited for. But that is all coming up in our final episode of 2021.
So, hi Alice. As we hinted at in our introduction, there are quite a few festive treats lined up today.
Yep, we are celebrating another year of brilliant TV, and in the face of another challenging year, although luckily not as challenging as 2020, but still pretty bad.
Still not a great year.
Still patchy, I would say. But the TV industry has once again delivered some insanely good shows.
For sure. And we're both recording not in the way that we necessarily planned, which was in the office with a little festive drink, but we are instead sat with, well, I've got some gingerbread biscuits and a cup of tea to try and feel festive today.
Yep, I've got some Terry's chocolate orange that I brought from the shop on my lunch break because I am having the mildest hangover. Nothing awful, just a little, need a little something sweet to get me through this. But that is, as I joked to the lady at Tesco's, that is the sign that Christmas season is upon us, when you are just constantly nursing a mild hangover from Christmas fun.
A professional hangover.
A professional hangover. And, we are still going to make it as fun as possible.
Yeah. So if we try and do this chronologically, there's so much to cover, and we definitely aren't going to be able to fill in all of the biggest news of 2021 because there was just so much happening. But if you can cast your mind all the way back to a year ago or so, which doesn't feel like a horrible version of Groundhog Day whatsoever, there was major change happening at the BBC.
So in December 2020, they shook it all up and scrapped controller roles and the BBC4 editor position and replaced that with getting everyone genre positions.
So that has set off a major precedent of change over on the BBC. That scrapping of controller positions showed a real move over to iPlayer. But then in February, it was confirmed that the BBC Three would be returning as a linear channel 5 years after its controversial removal from the EPG.
One of the debates I found really interesting about the return of BBC Three as a linear channel was all of the questioning and debating about acquisitions. I know this is Commissioning Conversations, but to move us into the other side of the industry with acquisitions, ITV and a lot of other companies came out and said, if BBC Three is going to return to a linear channel, it needs to stop relying so much on acquisitions, because I think, and they were using the example of Gossip Girl, which ITV2 had wanted and was outbid by BBC/BBC Three for, because I love some of the things that BBC Three acquires, and I think that is actually one of the major strengths of iPlayer and programming strategy, is that it gets some very good American, particularly, acquisitions.
Well, the channel recently had its annual budget doubled to about 70 million. So it definitely will have enough money to support a linear TV schedule, but I'm definitely intrigued as to how much of that will actually be made up of acquisitions from the US, especially. I'm trying to think of what used to be on the schedule when it was BBC Three and it was linear. Was Family Guy on there?
It was a lot of Family Guy, which now ITV2 has, I'm pretty sure.
Oh, the drama. Also, some more gossipy news perhaps of the year was when Piers Morgan departed from Good Morning Britain in March. What a moment that was.
What a moment. And I mean, it led to the end of him hosting the show, which I think he had done for 6 years. So
6 controversial years.
6 very controversial years. So that was big TV news at the time. And I will move us on to the other giant story of the year, which was the Channel 4 privatisation row, which luckily there's still time and a decision hasn't been made. So at least we're not reporting on that in a sad way.
Yeah, I think it's, for our sector, it is probably the biggest story of the year, was the news that the government had launched a formal consultation on the future of Channel 4. Obviously, broadcast listeners and broadcast intelligence listeners will be aware of the Not For Sale campaign that broadcast launched in the summer. The argument is that Channel 4 has got a really unique remit. The full stance is published online and people can read about it there. But it's an ongoing story that I think we can expect to continue to grip the sector until 2022. We've got Nadine Dorries now, who was appointed the new culture secretary in a reshuffle recently.
Yeah.
And you've got a long relationship with Nadine.
I do. Dean is the MP for Mid Bedfordshire, which is where my parents are from and where I grew up. And when I was, say, 10, maybe 12, that sort of age, I got asked to do a presentation on the different types of political parties there were. And she was meant to come to the assembly where I gave the presentation, and she was 3 hours late. And you know what?
Absolutely shocking.
Never forgiven her. And if she privatises Channel 4, that'll be 2 crosses on my list for Nadine.
She's on your naughty list this year. So the kind of latest update on the Channel 4 privatisation story is that during the DTMS committee, the culture secretary, Nadine, said that she hasn't made up her mind yet about whether Channel 4 will be privatised. And she said it's a big body of work and there are a number of issues that she needs to consider before she makes a decision. So I suppose we'll have to watch this space, and it will definitely be one of the core stories that we'll be following closely in 2022.
And then, to move on to the rest of the year, in August, during another virtual Edinburgh TV, which I am so excited for 2022 to be back in Edinburgh. I've missed it. But anyway, during that, we watched Jack Thorne's just absolutely outstanding McTaggart lecture. I think every year, whoever they select as the speaker for the McTaggart lecture knocks it out of the park.
And just because it was virtual, it lost absolutely none of its impact. To summarise, he essentially slammed the UK TV industry's treatment of disability, and during the speech he called for a quota to basically redress the situation. I think the main line that people were writing was his quote, "TV has failed disabled people utterly and totally." So he did not mince his words whatsoever.
No. And he said, 20% of the UK population disabled, yet they're represented by 8.2% of on-screen talent, and 5.4% of people work off-screen. And then of top executives, only 3.6% are disabled. And recently as well, he spoke about how a lot of production offices and studios are not fit for purpose. There's no accessible toilets or accessible doors. It's just a real sad state of the industry as well. He said about it being an area of diversity that's often just not given enough attention. You can't just hire some more disabled people. You have to ensure that their needs are adequately met to allow them to work in the best capacity.
Yeah, I was listening to Must Watch the other day, and Jack Thorne was speaking on it then, and he was saying how they'd been doing some more research into this charter and they'd found that there was only one disabled toilet on the sets that they'd visited, and it was something that a lot of people speak loudly to, but we're still yet to see the full addressal of the issue. But again, this is another thing that we can really expect to go into 2022. So the latest that we've got on this is that Jack Thorne was saying that studios could face boycotts from broadcasters if they don't provide sufficient disabled access. So there is a lot happening, and hopefully it's a story that will continue to get as much attention as it deserves. And I think that McTaggart, as always, really set the agenda. And I'm very intrigued as to next year's Edinburgh, which will, as we say, hopefully be the first one for a while now that's in person, what the state of affairs will be in August 2022.
We're going to be talking about this for a long time, and there's lots that needs to be done. But moving on to the final bit of big news that we have been talking about this year, which is Squid Game.
Yes, how do you even begin to describe Squid Game? It was the smash hit that everyone was talking about at MIPCOM this year.
MIPCOM, anywhere, smash hit that anyone was talking about anywhere they were. And I think the thing that really shows how this like Netflix local but global thing, it just is so exemplified by Squid Game. You know, it's so South Korean, and it just really exemplifies Netflix's local but global. And it's not just Netflix's local but global approach anymore. It's all major streamers. You know, everyone wants these hyper local stories, and you know, when they're good, they can travel the world. And I think it's a nice position to be in.
Yeah, I thought it was fascinating how much it captured the attention of people everywhere. I know that Netflix, they have these big smash hits, but it was really amazing to see a show that was in a dubbed language and did not stop young audiences from consuming it crazily. That's one of the things that Netflix has really excelled in, has been really encouraging formats from all over the world, different drama ideas, new talent. That is kind of the best that Netflix can be. And hopefully, even though I personally didn't actually like Squid Game that much, I think it's amazing what it can do and the power that TV can still have, and it will still continue to make these big radical shifts. And now everyone's talking about what the next Squid Game is going to be.
And I think it'll be another thing, because the next Squid Game will come from nowhere, and it'll be really exciting. So, looking back over the year, how's it been for you, Hev? Generally, and TV industry wise.
I think I won't go into personally. It's been a testing year, but I think as we kind of said at the top of the podcast, there has been a lot of quite intense challenges and difficulties for the industry. Things aren't easy, but the amount of really inspiring television, really fantastic work that came out has really just, it's very warming to be able to see and talk about, as we will later in highlighting our favorite shows of the year, just how good of a job.
Yeah, for sure. And I think I'm with you on the personal level. I think we both moved house 2 or 3 times. So, and that's each, not even between us. And I think, you know, the industry is recovering, which is really nice. You know, 2020 was awful. 2021 was a bit better. And I think 2022 will be better still. I think, we're going to see a lot more local streamers. So things, very specific content streamers as well. You know, things like AMC's Shudder, which is just horror. I think, we'll see a lot more of that. I think hopefully we'll see Channel 4 not be privatized. Yeah, I think we'll just see just a lot more foreign language dramas being made and shown to UK audiences and US audiences.
There's some Yuletide joy.
Yuletide joy.
To finish recapping the year, I've put together a tiny quiz for you, Alice.
I'm getting my egghead on.
Number 1. Which of these 3 shows is not a Channel 4 dating format announced this year? Number 1, Needle in a Haystack, a dating format that looks to pair single rural romantic farmers by participating in various farming challenges such as sheep shearing and dog training. Let's Make a Scene, which sees singletons dress up like movie stars and reenact romantic scenes to see if sparks fly. Number 3, The Language of Love, which sees participants from the UK and Spain pair up to try and find romance despite not being able to speak the same language.
Oh, right. Okay. I know The Language of Love is real because I remember reading about it. I feel like needle in a haystack could be real because it fits with like nations and regions and like out of London programming. That's the most
Those lovely rural farmers.
that is the most I work in TV commissioning way to deliberate this. So yeah, I think it's Let's Make a Scene.
The answer is Needle in a Haystack is the made-up dating format that I created
Oh
at 3 o'clock yesterday afternoon.
Heather, you need to pitch that.
I don't want to toot my own horn, but I really do think it would appeal to the hearts and minds of the rural community.
Oh my God. Like, you've copyrighted that.
I will be taking development funding. Thank you very much. But I also want to talk about Let's Make a Scene, because the idea of dressing up like a movie star to reenact a romantic scene when you cannot act is the most disgusting. I can't think of anything worse.
Would you
The
get
amount
the
of ick? Yes, the amount of ick that I would get from someone trying to reenact like Dirty Dancing and doing it horribly.
Stop it. What would be the worst film?
Maybe Ghost.
Oh yeah. Oh, some random guy just coming up behind you and like putting his hands on your
Touching some
hands.
clay. Yeah, well, I think that will definitely make for some good social media clips in the new year when that show comes out.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, number 2. Which of these programs was not rebooted or revived by Channel 5 this year? Number 1, You Are What You Eat. Number 2, Eggheads, which I think you might know. 3, Undercover Big Boss. Or 4, Watercolor Challenge.
It was number 1, You Are What You Eat. Water Challenge was. Undercover Big Boss was rebooted. Was that definitely Channel 5 or was it ITV? Ooh. Is it a trick question? Is it actually Undercover Big Boss? You tried to get me, but I know programs.
Well, I'm now suddenly doubting myself because I'm sure that You Are What You Eat was rebooted by Channel 5, because the answer to my quiz was Undercover Big Boss.
Yeah, You Are What You Eat has been Channel 5. You were right. Undercover Big Boss was ITV.
There you go.
I knew it. I knew it.
Yeah, which will once again see company bosses go undercover to see what happens behind closed doors.
I used to love that show.
Question number 3. There have been a lot of controversies this year, and they've resulted in a lot of Ofcom complaints, including Piers Morgan's comments about Meghan Markle. However, I have compiled a few of the lesser known Ofcom complaints of the year. Can you guess which one I have made up? Number 1, an influencer appearing on This Morning to discuss how he identifies as Korean. He's not actually Korean. Number 2, Ant and Dec being mean to each other and Dec being called Stumpy. Or number 3, a Good Morning Britain interviewee who claimed that calling extraterrestrials aliens is deeply offensive.
I know the Korean guy's real because I was one of those stories where I was just like, oh, what?
So is Dec Stumpy, or are calling extraterrestrials aliens offensive?
His Dec Stumpy. I like how that's my option. I have to on this podcast be like, yeah, he is a bit short, isn't he? I think the one you made up was extraterrestrials.
You are correct. And I actually did this one just for you because that's something that Demi Lovato said.
If you haven't seen it, there is a series, I think on the Travel Channel, but I might be wrong, where Demi Lovato goes to find ghosts, aliens, and the like. It's slightly deranged. There's a clip where they sing their song Skyscraper to an empty room to get the ghost to like trust them, so that the ghost can communicate.
Oh,
and it is hilarious and I'm obsessed with it.
that concludes my quiz. Just a little festive treat, and I hope you enjoyed it.
2 out of 3 ain't bad, as they say.
No, well done.
There was some debate on the whether I got number 2 right, but I'm taking it.
You know what? It's Christmas, Alice. You get 2 out of 3.
That's the biggest gift.
And then I
of all.
get the development funding rights for Needle in a Haystack.
You literally need to. Wow. As well as, big news in 2021 and me getting 2 out of 3, also thought we would shout out all the amazing content that came to our screens this year.
Yes, in a little segment that we've coined TV's favourite telly of 2021, we have been in touch with an array of industry voices, former podcast guests, and some subscribers about their favourite shows of the year. And me and Alice will inevitably also be weighing in with our favourite shows of the year.
Looking at the notes, there was a lot of votes for Succession, which I started to watch today on my lunch break after watching lots of TikToks about it. And I thought,
it dominates social media, absolutely.
Yeah, I was really enjoying the TikToks, and Maurice Wheeler, who's the CEO of We Are Family, summed it up by saying, "Never have I loved a loathsome bunch of people in all my life. Their relentless drive to the bottom of the moral ladder is in some weird way endearing. At least they are consistently self-serving monsters."
Yeah, that quote from him really made me laugh. I think he does sum it up pretty perfectly. So I haven't actually watched the latest series. During the last year or so, I've been trying to make my way through classic dramas that I hadn't seen before. So last year I watched all of The Wire, and then at the moment I'm watching The Sopranos, and then started to watch Succession, which really makes you doubt a lot of humanity. But I have been loving Succession, and it's completely taken over social media, which is slightly annoying because I'm behind. So people keep tweeting about things that are happening, and I keep not knowing what's happening and slightly getting spoilers. But I think Succession is one of those shows where it doesn't really matter about the plot. You're just completely obsessed with the characters, and they are all these absolutely disgraceful, horrible people that you can just thoroughly enjoy, which means that watching it simultaneously with The Sopranos makes for very bleak but very, very entertaining viewing. And it was also shouted out, I should say, by Alan Clements from Two Rivers and Andrew Mackenzie from South Shore. Both had these in their lists of favorite shows. So Succession, very popular, not very surprising.
And other things that Alan shouted out was one of my favorites, which was 9/11 Inside the President's War Room. That was an Apple BBC co-commission. It honestly, it blew me away. It was just, the access was insane. It was like President Bush talking about his day. Well, not his day, his day on 9/11. It was phenomenal. It was so interesting to see it like that. The thing that really stuck with me as well was about how kind of ill prepared the panic room and control rooms were in the White House, because obviously they hadn't really used them for years, and they're in this room strategizing and being like, what should we do, what is going on? And they realize that they're all falling asleep because there's no ventilation, and all the carbon dioxide that they were breathing out was just slowly sending them to sleep and giving them a bit of a carbon dioxide poisoning. So that really, details like that were just so interesting, and it went really down into that detail.
Yeah, I really loved that documentary as well. And it was one of those ones where, so I, giving away my age slightly, don't really remember 9/11 at all. And I'm obviously aware of everything that happened, but it really did give some insights that I hadn't realized. So I completely was unaware that George Bush was in a school with children, and then someone comes and whispers in his ear what's going on while he's like reading a book and talking to kids about reading. And then there's that really haunting footage of his face where he's just looking around trying to process something completely unprocessable while sat in a room and trying to not panic children. It's so interesting. It was a really, really good documentary.
Mel Leach from South Shore said she loved White Lotus. Haven't seen, but is on my list. I hear it's Succession-y vibes, so I'm going to try the Succession first, and then I'll report back on White Lotus. And the Tony Blair, Gordon Brown BBC Two documentary, which again, another one on my list.
I have watched Blair and Brown, the New Labour Revolution, so I love these BBC documentaries. The Margaret Thatcher one, that series was absolutely excellent, and this is in a somewhat similar vein. Again, the access is absolutely fantastic. Some of the interviews and the footage that they have in that series, I think it's across 5 parts, and it kind of documents how they went from being these two masterminds of New Labour to essentially fundamentally opposing each other by the end. And it's just such an interesting relationship, and one that I hadn't really appreciated before, but it's a great subject matter. And yeah, really, really good shout there. If you haven't watched it, I would recommend it. As it's across 5 episodes, you can really get your teeth into that at Christmas.
I'm going to put that on my list. I've got a week off, binge everything that I can't watch. Other things that were shouted out, so let's stick with South Shore. So Andrew Mackenzie, back to you. Andrew shouted out Staff Lets Flats, Mayor of Easttown, Succession, Curb Your Enthusiasm, and then ITV4's Tour de France coverage, BBC's NFL show. He said, getting rid of the presenter, what a radical idea, but it really works. Sky Sports in general. Lockdown Later with Jules, which he said was better than the real show. And Little Gems Paul Merson doc and Top Gear's Eddie Kidd film. So lots of good recommendations from Andrew.
The one that I really want to jump on is Staff Lets Flats. Oh my God, series 3. Staff Lets Flats has just really come into its own. It is completely unhinged madness, and I absolutely love it. I think I normally in comedy tend to steer towards more comedy dramas. I like things that kind of laugh at dark moments, but Staff Lets Flats is such a breath of fresh air. It's just so silly. In series 3 in particular is really silly, and I remember seeing a tweet by Ash Atala who was saying, I think it's episode 4, that it was one of the kind of silliest bits of TV that he'd made alongside the episode of the IT Crowd where they're at the theatre. And he said that both were cries for help. And the IT Crowd episode where they all go to the theatre is one of my favourite episodes of television of all time. So I was really excited, and Staff did not let me down.
So Luke Hyams, who was on the podcast a couple of weeks ago, said Adam Curtis's latest series, Can't Get You Out of My Head, lived up to its name by providing an epic jaunt through history that both entertained and reframed perspectives on our world in his unmistakable style. And I am a huge Adam Curtis fan, but I haven't seen it yet because after I watched Hypernormalization, I think I walked around for like a week being like, the world is weird. To summarize what goes on in my brain. So I think I need to be emotionally prepared. But like I said, week off.
Yeah, he's not like a binge watch kind of guy. He's you watch it and you think about it deeply for the coming months kind of guy, which is exactly what a documentary maker should often try and do. But it does mean that you don't crash through all of his shows in one sitting.
Other shout outs from Luke were Vice's Dark Side of the Ring Series 3, Mindhouse's Gods of Snooker, which I have heard was very interesting for its subject matter. Luke said it once again proves that sport is one of the most interesting areas from which dramatic documentaries can be born, and it really doesn't matter if you're a fan or not. Agreed. And he ended with Get Back was just an incredible feast for any Beatles fan, providing unparalleled access that helped us delve into the process and interpersonal relationships with the band in an in-depth way not seen before.
The amount of people that I've heard going on about Get Back, like the hype behind it is very real. Great Disney documentary there.
I'm going to say something that my 15-year-old feminist self would kill me for, in that watching Get Back, so I've only watched the first hour, I would say, but I can see why people didn't like Yoko. She might disappear at some point, but she so far has just been a silent witness to the whole first hour of this documentary.
So another person that we spoke with was Simon Crawford, who is managing director of Slim Film and TV, and he gave out one of the biggest shouts that me and Alice were both all over this drama. It's a Sin, which he said had gorgeous characters, heartrending, funny, and ultimately taught us about the importance of tolerance and love. And oh my God, me and Alice are both absolutely obsessed with It's a Sin, and it's up there. And if not my number one, my number two favorite show of the whole of 2021.
I getting myself like emotionally ready because I think I want to watch it again. But I need to like prepare to watch it again. But that's how much I loved it. Quite a few people also agreed with It's a Sin. So Deborah Dunnett, who's Channel 4 commissioning editor, she said, I'm sure I'm saying the same as everyone else, but It's a Sin had a profound impact on me. It was heartbreakingly perfect and still is my screensaver, favorite sweatshirt and mug, which, you know, that's a fan. And
I know I can't say I'm as committed of a super fan as Deborah. I have no mugs.
No, I do want the t-shirt, but I need to buy it.
That is how you obtain t-shirts.
That's how you obtain things. Trade my money for goods and other items. Maurice Wheeler also shouted out It's a Sin. He said, a tender and loving story about the brutal realities of a world I grew up in but had no real idea about. It left me feeling angry that I didn't really know about it, angry that it happened. I'm worried about all the other stories I'm not seeing at the moment. They say the best stories are the ones that stay with you. This one is still there, always in the back of my mind when I see how minorities are treated and marginalized. And I agree, it's like it is one of those ones that always will stay with me.
Absolutely. And I also think there's something about it which is it's not just sad. And every time that I try and recommend it to people, if I meet someone and they haven't watched it yet, it is the show that I'm like, oh my God, you have to watch this show. And then when you try and explain it, some people are like, oh, it sounds a bit of a bummer. And I mean, I won't lie, I cried hysterically from episode 3 onwards. But at the same time, it's so full of life and all the characters are so fun and so lively and joyous that everyone is just completely rounded. Like I could watch that if it was 100 episodes long and I would just happily bob along with all of the characters because they're absolutely gorgeous. And I think if I had one criticism of it, it would be, I know that originally it was planned to be over 7 episodes and it got reduced to 5. And I would do anything to just have those extra 2 precious hours with that gorgeous group of friends because they're just, Russell T Davies can do absolutely no wrong. Yeah, you just can like feel all of his love of the 80s and that scene all like pouring out onto the screen.
Yeah, it's such a gorgeous series. It deserves all of the praise and all of the love it gets. I just don't even know what else to say about it other than.
But when I recommend the show, I want to emphasize it's not just a sad show. It is so joyful.
And that is why the emotions, the highs and the lows are so good. Anyway, so we spoke about It's a Sin. Simon also said Fever Pitch, The Rise of the Premier League. Was
That's a great doc.
so much fun and reminded me of iconic moments from iconic characters like Gascoigne, Beckham, and Cantona. Cantona. You can tell that I have not watched that documentary and I do not watch football.
Well, I am somewhat of a football fan and I really enjoyed it because it was like an era of football that where I wasn't involved in football. I didn't follow it at the time. So watching all these kind of legends and now understanding half of the references that I just did not understand before was really, really fun. It was cool to learn a little bit more. But the documentary was, as Simon said, it was really fun. It wasn't, a hard-nosed, serious documentary constantly. It was a jaunt through football in the early noughties.
Well, we love a jaunt.
Love a jaunt.
And the other drama that got mentioned a few times was Squid Game. We mentioned it earlier, but Simon also said it was so clever to weave such truthful, poignant characters into such a heightened and stylized world.
Yeah, controversially, I didn't love Squid Game. I'm just just going to cause some conflict in the podcast, but I really, as I said earlier, I really appreciate what it did in terms of just bringing attention, bringing more foreign language programming into the UK zeitgeist and having people talk about it, and just encouraging the use of subtitles. But in terms of the actual plot, it was one of those ones where I thought it had you on the edge of your seat and you were constantly hooked with that kind of high adrenaline drama. But actually, I really hated the ending and I just couldn't get behind it. So there's my 2 cents.
I didn't even watch it, so it just wasn't my thing.
You didn't watch it?
No. I did watch Emily in Paris, though. That's an international drama I could get behind.
I am cancelling you.
I'd cancel myself if I could.
And finally, we had to ask our friends at Digital Eye, and Sophia Vedati said that her TV highlight of the year was Arcane League of Legends, of which the soundtrack has now become a constant feature of her working from home office.
Love a good soundtrack.
Well, it is a Netflix series, and I mean, anything that provides a soundtrack for the work from home life, as we said earlier, that's what we're doing at the moment. Very supportive of that. And I'll have a look. I've just Googled it and it has 100% on Rotten Tomatoes. So I'm clearly missing out on something here.
Yeah, maybe we will have to give it a go.
Good shout, Sophia.
So, Heather, what was your favourites?
Yeah. I just did not realize how many things had come out this year. And then when you start to mull it over and you think about things that came out in like February and March, it really blows your mind. So we've already spoken about It's a Sin, and I could go on and on and on about that drama, but know that that is definitely in my top 2, if not my number 1. Other ones that I want to give a big shout out to were RuPaul's Drag Race season 2, which I didn't realize had come out in 2021 until yesterday. The episode after lockdown where they all come back and then they do UK Hun and make the most iconic song. It was in my Spotify Wrapped top 100 songs, which I should probably be embarrassed about, but I'm not. It was just such a great episode and such a good series. Incredible talent. Just really holds a special place in my heart. So Drag Race season 2, I liked. Season 3, didn't like it as much as season 2. And I wanted to give a shout out to some of the documentaries I watched this year as well, because there have been so many good documentaries, but I suddenly remembered one, and it possibly my show of the year. I'm not sure if it was originally released in 2021, but it came out as a BBC Storyville film in 2021 in like March or April time. And it's called Undercover OAP, The Mole Agent. And it's kind of a silly documentary in a lot of ways, but it is also one of the most heartwarming, beautifully shot documentaries that really just took me by surprise. And I was just scrolling through, picked it because it looked kind of, the title's got like a picture of a guy with a magnifying glass and looked kind of silly. And it's about this 83-year-old man that goes undercover in a nursing home to see if one of the residents is being treated properly. And it ends up just being this really lovely examination of being old and being lonely and finding people and forming new relationships when you're, in your 80s. And it's just so lovely. It made me cry. It made me laugh out loud. And if you get a minute of your time, please watch it. It is absolutely stunning.
I think I will definitely put that on my list.
How about you, Alice? What were your top shows now that I've finished whittering on?
So previously mentioned President's War Room and It's Sin. I also really enjoyed the Nat Geo documentary series, 9/11 One Day in America. I actually ended up watching that back to back. Then had to go on a train and I was like, why am I so anxious? Like, yeah, 'cause you've been watching literally documentaries about terrorism all day. Of course you feel a bit funny.
Yeah, that's the kind of thing that might put you on edge.
What else did I love? I remember 9/11. So I think the 9/11 One Day in America, I felt like I knew a lot about the subject, but actually that did something that I really love when I'm watching a documentary about a well-known subject, and it just told me new stories and different perspectives. And yeah, I really, really enjoyed it, and I learned a lot, which I felt like I probably had seen all the 9/11 documentaries and knew most things, but no, I still learned some more. Other things I loved on the other side of, hard-hitting documentaries was You, series 3.
Oh my God, how could I forget?
I know that ending enrages me. I loved the character of Love, and I think she just made the whole series. And now I don't know what I'm going to do now that she's not in it anymore. You has its criticisms for being a kind of like almost romanticized portrayal of stalking and murder and violence. And I would say you have to come to it as a dark comedy. It's a dark comedy more first and foremost. And I think it really does that well. It's really funny.
If you take it in as a silly watch that you can just embrace, then it is such a fun show.
Other things I loved, I'm kind of cheating with this one because I went to see If This Way Up, the series with Aisling B came out this year, and I found out there's a series 2 that is out that I've just missed. So that's what I'm doing with my evening, catching up on that. But I know it's already going to be one of my top shows for 2021 because I just loved series 1 and felt very #relatable.
That's a show that's on my list. I've been meaning to watch This Way Up for a really long time.
Another one in that vein, which I think you loved as well, was Feel Good.
Oh my God, how did I not mention Feel Good? This is TV just smashing it left, right, and center.
Feel Good. The crafting of the relationship between May and George is just so amazing, and I loved it.
Yeah, I'm also a little bit in love with May.
Yeah. My dad watched it and he was like, they just can be really horrible to each other at times, can't they? And I think he nailed that dynamic on the head, because he was saying it in a kind of like pondering why couldn't either of them just get their lives together kind of way, not in a like, oh, it's not nice. He's just like, oh, they just wish those two would sort it out.
Yeah, because it feels very earned.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, I think that's, gosh, I sound exhausted, but I am. There's so much TV. I could go on and on and on. I was struggling to even think, but I know I've watched a load of great stuff this year.
Yeah, we really could talk about TV forever, which is a good thing because we have a podcast where we talk about television, but maybe it's about time we wrap up for the year.
The final podcast. So yeah, we are going to have a little break.
Yeah, so I am joining the broadcast reporting team in the new year, which I'm very excited about, but it does mean that me and Alice's commissioning conversations will be taking a slightly different shape in the new year, but it does not mean we will stop talking about television.
No, unfortunately, we both really just enjoy getting paid to talk to each other. So we were taking a little break, seeing what we're going to do with the format, maybe bring in some more news. Maybe we'll keep it the same. Who knows? But we will be back in the new year.
Yeah. So Merry Christmas.
Feliz Navidad.
Yeah. So have a happy new year and goodbye for now. We'll see you in a shiny new 2022.
Goodbye.
Thank you for listening. We'll be back soon with another podcast, but in the meantime, be sure to check us out and all the latest commissioning briefs and programme greenlights at broadcastintel.com.